Nature is great, no doubt about it. There's an infinite number of beautiful sights in this world. There's something about nature that uplifts your soul. That's why we want to preserve and protect nature. At the same time, it's also why we want to visit nature. All around the world, we have these things called national parks and nature reserves. To do just that, preserve nature. National parks allow you to do just that. Enjoy and visit nature. To entice people to go outside and touch grass, or to touch rocks, so to speak. An argument can be made that national parks are meant for tourism as much as national parks are for preservation. National parks do have park in the name after all, like a city park. One thing's for sure, national parks are absolutely breathtaking. In this video, I'm going to go over national parks in the United States because I live here, and it has some of the best national parks in the world. Let's go over the history of national parks, because why not? There's the claim that the world's first national park was established in 1870 in the states of Wyoming and Montana. It was Yellowstone National Park. You know, the one with the supervolcano. However, technically Mongolia holds the title of the world's first national park. In 1773, the Mongolian government under the Qing dynasty established Bogkhan-ul. Bogkhan-ul is a mountain that overlooks Mongolia's capital city, Ulaanbaatar. In the United States, Yosemite, Sequoia, and Mount Rainier were granted national park status later in the 1870s. Native Americans who were living on the land that would become national parks were ousted from that land and had restrictions placed upon the usage of that land. National parks were used as a tool of manifest destiny and settler colonialism. Railroads were built to make national parks more accessible for white city dwellers. So like many things in the US, national parks did have passenger rail access at one point. Then the passenger rail services were cut. National parks were sold as civilized wilderness with fine dining and upscale accommodations. Over time, as more national parks and other nature preserves were added, there was no single authority to manage the parks. The National Park Service was established in 1916 to consolidate the management of national parks and is responsible for the management and maintenance of those parks. Is building transit to a national park justified? Well, for one, national parks are major tourist destinations with a ton of visitors. By a ton, I mean millions of visitors. In 2022, the National Park Service received 312 million visitors. For comparison, the US population is 335 million people. A lot of people want to touch grass and visit national parks. Most people visit national parks by car. Cars do have an effect on the parks. Cars pollute and release emissions. Emissions of air pollutants contributes to the acid precipitation and acidify the waters of the parks. Emissions from cars also lead to the development of haze. Haze pollutes the air while impairing views. More well-known national parks like Yellowstone and Yosemite have traffic jams, like actual traffic jams going into the parks. That's a lot of cars. More traffic means more emissions, thus more damage to the parks. Traffic congestion makes visiting a national park worse. It's harder to get to the park and move through the park. Well, one thing's for sure, the solution definitely isn't more lanes. Despite what Elon Musk says, induced demand exists. Induced demand would mean that extra lanes would get filled up with more car traffic. Cars also affect wildlife deaths at the parks. For example, 90% of grizzly bear deaths occur within 300 feet or 91.44 meters of a road. In parks where cars were reduced or banned, wildlife made a comeback. Cars have that much of an effect on wildlife. Buses and even trains at national parks could be a good way to mitigate or even solve the traffic and environmental issues caused by cars at national parks, while making it easier to get to the parks. Buses would allow for more people to visit the parks while reducing traffic. It's not like having buses and trains to national parks is impossible. Even in the US, there are national parks that have buses. Acadia National Park in Maine has a shuttle bus system that goes around the island and connects destinations in the park with nearby towns. The system eliminated 43,000 car trips. In 2001 alone, the shuttle bus system kept 81,000 cars outside of the park. In addition to serving tourists, the bus system also serves residents and people who work at the park. National parks could be connected to a train. It is physically possible to have a train that runs to a national park, but building a train to a national park would be insanely expensive compared with running buses. It might not be politically possible to build a train to a national park, but there are national parks that have direct train connections in them. For example, various national parks in Switzerland have trains leading to the park and trains inside the parks too. So no need for driving and then having to circle around to look for a parking spot. A train connection will reduce the need to drive to national parks, combined with more limited parking at the parks. More people would take trains in and around the parks. Less people would drive to the parks and many vehicle trips will be reduced. A train connection will provide a way for the locals and park staff to get around easier. So in conclusion, national parks should build train systems to mitigate the issues caused by cars. Over-tourism and national parks meant to make money off tourists to the detriment of locals are a whole other can of worms. That will require another video. If you are the 1% of people who made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. And this channel now has a Discord server you can join. See you next time!